What do the Nazis, the CIA, and Aleister Crowley all have in common?
What's really controlling Hollywood and the music industry?
MK Ultra, is it just mind control, or does it have a bigger influence?
And how does this affect you?
All this and more on today's episode of Edge of Wonder. Welcome to Edge of Wonder. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Rob. So before we even begin this episode, we wanted to start with a crazy quote from former Soviet dictator.
Well, don't forget, mass murderer as well.
Yeah, of course. Joseph Stalin, who said, "If I could control the medium of the American motion picture, I would need nothing else to convert the entire world to communism."
All right, and even Lenin said that out of all the arts, the cinema is the most important. And if that's not enough, he also said if you tell a lie enough, it becomes true.
Yeah, so Hollywood never lies or has an agenda. So why did we start with these quotes?
Well, just to show you how important Hollywood and the music industry is to the shadow government, Illuminati,
Whatever you
deep
guys
state,
want to call
whatever
it.
you want to
Yeah.
say.
Okay, so let's first talk briefly about what MK Ultra is and how it got started. First off, it's believed that MK stands for the German word
Mindkontrolle.
which is control in English.
Right, so mind control goes back all the way to Egyptian times with the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But, let's fast forward to more recent times, because otherwise, we could be talking
about-
forever about what this is.
So before World War II, the Nazis were already experimenting with mind control and eugenics, which is supposedly improving the human population by controlled breeding.
Okay, so after World War II, the US DoD, or Department of Defense, recruited many of the top Nazi scientists, which was actually called Project Paperclip. And they met with President Truman and a bunch of other US generals. So the Office of Strategic Services eventually became the CIA, with Alan Dulles at the head in 1947.
I believe that's pronounced Dulles.
Dulles.
But we're terrible at pronouncing
Yeah.
things, so let's just keep going.
Dulles, yeah, Dulles.
So yeah, this is like Hydra. I mean, this is literally a worse situation than Winter Soldier.
This is like really
Like, it's not
part of Winter Soldier. I mean,
At least-
in Winter Soldier had mind control. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
like real
No,
life.
but like at least in Winter Soldier, like Hydra infiltrated SHIELD. Like here, we let them
S.H.I.E.L.D.
right in.
It'd be like S.H.I.E.L.D. is
Yeah,
Hydra,
it's like, yeah, basically.
That's crazy.
So,
You're right.
okay, well, that script story, I guess, had to come from somewhere, right?
Right. Maybe.
Or else, at the very least, it really parallels with it. I mean, we can go into this and what it means and the huge, massive conspiracy mountain that we just dropped, but let's just wait and do this when we go into the complete history of the Illuminati.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so in 1953, during the Cold War, Dulles approved Project MK Ultra to originally combat the Soviets, who were brainwashing enemies with drugs and other psychological manipulators. However, this went from being used for warfare to the general public, with hundreds being tested without knowing, and some of them did know and some of them didn't know.
Right, right.
I mean, they had over 80 different testing sites from colleges, drug manufacturers, hospitals, prisons, and realistically, Columbia University seemed to be one of the biggest
it's like
test sites that they had.
right down the
It's
street.
like, yeah, right down the street.
So no one knows how many people were tested because the CIA destroyed most MK Ultra documents.
Well, gee, how convenient.
Right? When the program was officially halted in 1973.
Well, actually, MK Ultra is now a blanket term used for pretty much anything related to mind control. They were using other terms after that, like Project Orion, MK Delta, Project Clean Sweep, which was used in the 90s. Now I'm sure they have some new name that we don't know what it is
Just
yet.
change the name, keep
Exactly.
it going, something like that. So stay tuned if you want to know what the purpose is for all this mind control.
Well, you guys probably already know this, but there is a very deep plot supposedly related to all of this in Hollywood, and the reason being is basically control the culture. When you control the culture, you can control what the mainstream general population is receiving.
Makes sense. So one conspiracy theory we've come across is that satanic worshiping is rampant throughout the government and the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So this guy named Michael Aquino, who we just mentioned in our last video about mind control, was one of the main people working with the CIA, and he was doing most of these experiments in what became kind of like the mastermind behind of what MK Ultra is today.
By the way, check out our last video titled The Voice of God. if you haven't already watched it. He has a long history of doing insane stuff and was actually a military officer. He started the weird demonic cult called Temple of Set. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that.
Yeah, well, we won't go into all of that yet, but I mean, maybe on a future episode what that actually is. But man, we're going kind of to a dark place right now, but we basically have to explain this to show you how weird and crazy Hollywood
Well, and how
is,
wrapped up
is.
like mind control is even with things that we're normally consuming.
Right, exactly.
So Ben and I don't want to show too many images here because we just don't want that dirty junk on our show.
Completely. So this guy, Michael Aquino, was actually inspired by this guy who the British press called the wickedest man in the whole world, Aleister Crowley, who started the evil Thelema cult.
The reason why we bring him up is because he coined the phrase, "do what thou wilt," which is actually used by like Jay-Z on his clothing line, and Lady Gaga also has a song titled "Do What You Want," which seems to be derived from this.
Yeah, I mean, and that whole song is about letting people rape her. It's just so insane. Like, how is this stuff in the mainstream anyway? It's just so weird. So kind of going into Aleister Crowley, like who this guy really is. Basically, this guy in the early 1900s came out and he literally wrote the book on how to summon demons. I mean, this guy like created this. He gets into all of this, how to do all of this. He influenced a lot of the government, society.
Well, artists.
I mean, artists. Well, yeah, that came a little bit later. Right. So first he started all of this, then he made up this cult religion called the Thelema that we were talking about. Once that came out, that spawned so much things. That influenced Anton LaVey, who literally wrote the Satanic Bible.
Right.
And then that inspired Michael Aquino, and then so all this stuff kind of grows together. But technically, like, Crowley is considered the godfather of modern pop culture.
Well, you know, the craziest thing out there is the rumors, or people are actually corroborating that Barbara Bush was the secret child of Crowley.
Yeah, that's out there.
But we digress.
We won't go into that.
Yeah, that's like for a different episode, I guess.
Totally different episode. But it's just crazy how much influence this guy had. It's insane. I mean, he's this complete Satan worshiper that is just everywhere. And I hate to say this, but even so-called Harry Potter, some of the works supposedly comes after this. Yeah, well, let's not go there. I mean, not yet on this one, but
getting real weird.
Yeah, it's really strange. Okay, how has he inspired pop culture? I mean, he's done everything from artwork to famous book authors and bands like Led Zeppelin, Michael Jackson, The Doors, I mean, even early Bowie and Mick Jagger.
So yeah, sympathy for the devil ring a bell? I mean, that's kind of where this is going, right?
Exactly, yeah. Sadly, I mean, I literally was like devastated when I found out about this, is that the Beatles were like, he was a huge influence on the Beatles.
So like apparently Crowley is on the cover of the Sgt. Pepper's, and also the cover of the Beatles' Help is related to Thelema somehow.
Yeah, the Thelema
I mean,
cult.
we're not positive, but it really it looks like there's evidence surrounding this.
Yeah, and then you have bands like Marilyn Manson, I mean, the obvious ones, Nine Inch Nails, Black Sabbath, I mean, pretty much every heavy metal band that's out there.
Right, so then like the new ones are, you know, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Kanye West, who seems to be fighting it lately, and then of course Madonna and every K-pop boy band and girl band out there.
Also, Lady Gaga has been heard saying, like, swearing to Lucifer, and
I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer.
Right. Yeah, and then
Katy
Perry said she swore her soul to the devil and has this song, Dance with the Devil or
yeah,
something.
I mean, she could have said it a little more figuratively or not, I mean, whatever.
Well, and that's
but
how
not
it's
literally,
often taken.
But I mean, it gets crazy. So Crowley was a huge supporter of reversing everything. I mean, he would basically, his whole concept was turning everything upside down, like playing things backwards, walking backwards. Why was he doing this? Well, he basically was wanting to turn everything that was upright upside down. That was this whole thing, and that's kind of what Satanism goes, and that what goes into his whole occult and beliefs. And he has the phrase, I mean, there's the phrase, as above, so below. And this is a Luciferian Satanist saying, basically means turning heaven upside down or create hell on earth or bring whatever hell is like, bring that to heaven. And that's what literally that.
Yeah, now all of this is, I mean, getting super weird, but when you dive into it like we did, it's kind of shocking, some of these things you find. A lot of songs, when played backwards, contain weird elements from Lady Gaga, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, etc. Jay-Z song titled Lucifer, where the remix of it by Danger Mouse says 666 murder murder Jesus. I mean, you can go hear that yourself.
Yeah, okay. Now to be fair, I mean, this remix supposedly wasn't approved by Jay-Z, but I mean, come on. If someone did this just with your song, wouldn't you be like, really, like, dude, why did you do this to my song? But instead he was like, yeah, it's cool. It's all about creating art and whatever, self-expression, and it's okay if he does this. But it's like, what the heck are you talking about?
So now the purpose of this is to basically mold society how they want and send messages, dumb us down, make us slaves to the systems, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, another weird episode. I think we should probably end this with that quote.
Dude, let's go back to Lenin.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was Lenin's thing about basically how to infiltrate the West.
Corrupt the young, get them away from religion, encourage their interest in sex, make them superficial by focusing their attention on sports, sensual entertainments, and other trivialities. Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. Encourage government extravaganza, destroy its credit, produce fear with rising prices, inflation, and general discontent, encourage disorders, and foster a lenient attitude towards disorders. By specious argument, cause the breakdown of the old moral virtues, honesty, sobriety, self-restraint. And that about says it all.
Yeah, so I mean, this seems exactly what's happening
Well,
in the
and
entertainment
it's like
industry.
back then when he said that, that was the things he was going after to be able to control things, right?
Right, exactly. But on a positive note, I mean, what can you guys do? I think, the main thing is just know what you're listening to. I mean,
Yeah, be aware.
even for me, it was just like, wow, I like this song, and I'm just found out that it has all these bad elements to it. But, I think the main thing is just be aware. And
Yeah.
well, guys, thanks for watching. I know this is kind of a weird episode. I mean, every episode we have is pretty much weird. So please hit like and subscribe.
Until next time, we'll see you guys out
On the Edge.